Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another episode of Voices for Excellence. I am your host, Dr. Michael Connor, CEO and founder of the Agile Evolutionary Group, and of course, the proud host of VFE. And today's guest, I can actually say I have known for over 20 years. We were talking, right, where Dr. Rebecca Good's kids, I remember when they were babies. And then Dr. Good said, "Hey, Mike, I remember when you had no kids, and now my son is going in fourth grade." It has been that long. Dr. Good has seen me as a teacher. We have been friends for over 20 years, seen each other's careers just blossom. It is just an honor to see Rebecca now as the vice provost. Now, I want to say that because this is coming from a proud friend. This is not Dr. Michael Connor speaking.
I like to add the national vice provost.
My bad. All right. This is coming from a friend, right? Dr. Rebecca Good. Let me rephrase that. National Vice Provost of Teacher Preparation for Relay Graduate School of Education, and of course, one of the founding deans of Relay Connecticut. Oh, it is just, I tell you, Rebecca, I am just super proud of you. National Vice Provost. I remember it was just Miss Good. Now it's
Miss Good. I still get called Miss Good. I was in the grocery store the other day. I got Miss Good.
And that's when you know it's way back. We were the Miss Good, Mr. Connor. Yes, I remember. Right. It was no Dr. Good, Dr. Connor.
And now when you tell people, well, now it's doctor. They're like,
doctor. I love it. As you can see, the synergy, the friendship between us. To my audience, Dr. Rebecca Good, I'm just super, super proud of her. So as I stated before, the National Vice Provost of Teacher Preparation for Relay Graduate School of Education, the founding dean for Relay Connecticut, just an honor. I want to welcome you, Dr. Rebecca Good, to VFE. Of course, before the recording, we were talking for like 20 minutes before we started actually recording this episode. But Dr. Good, how are you today?
I cannot. You are like the best hype man. I'm like, hey, I feel like I need to take you on the road with me. I'm like, and here I am. I feel real like, oh man, like this is it. I have arrived. Come on with the introduction.
Exactly. And Rebecca, here's the thing with the introduction, with the first question about what's your song that defines you. That's going to be the walk-in song after.
That's going to be my walk-in song. That's what I'm saying. Oh my goodness. Like this is, you talking about proud of me. I'm just so proud of you. I mean, I'm seeing all this incredible work. I'm seeing all of this, like what you are doing to impact kids and impact school systems. Like this is the work, and to see you out there and just spreading such a great work, not just nationally, but internationally, is phenomenal. And when I then went on the website and I said, oh, let me check the guests, I said, man, I must have got family friends discount because you got some guests on this podcast. I'm showing up here like, oh, like I better bring all of my Dr. Goodness to the podcast.
Rebecca, I tell you, man, I need some more Dr. Rebecca Good in my life. I haven't laughed this hard in a while, and it has been, to my audience, this is how I laugh all the time with Rebecca for the past 20 years. And, there's another mutual friend that we love out there. Shout out to Dr. William Johnson. Those two, I tell you, we want to talk about knowing me from
don't
day
get us
one.
all on this podcast now. Don't get the three of us up here.
This is home right here. This is home. Just so good to see you. But now, again, if we could go off like we always do, but I'm gonna
give it to me. I'm ready. I did my homework.
Listen, this isn't National Vice Provost. This isn't an interview, okay? I'm going to show you how you be putting other people on the hot seat. So now you're on it, right?
For real.
But Dr. Good, as you can see, everybody can see our synergy, but you have an array of instructional expertise. And this is the reason why you're on is, teacher development, quality, effectiveness, your instructional prowess. I want my audience to be able to see that. But, your instructional expertise in the ecosystem is, you're a czar, in my opinion.
Oh.
But as we were talking about before, what is Dr. Rebecca Good's excellence and equity song that underscores your leadership signature in the AC stage of education, which is after COVID-19?
Yeah, when I'm gonna come out and the song that I play to get me like, this is it. This is why we do this work before I'm testifying, before I'm creating. Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar, they did Freedom. And there is a line in that song. She says, I'm gonna keep on running because a winner don't quit on themselves. And like that right there is that's my push. We don't quit. I can't quit because I could never say I'm gonna quit on a kid. And all this work always comes back to doing right by children and making sure that the world that they inhabit is just a bit better than the one we have today.
Absolutely. And Dr. Good, I'll tell you, I love that, right? Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar, two legends, two
Right.
legends. And when you say a winner, don't quit on yourself, and looking at it from the can't quit on kids, I look at now in the AC stage of education where there are these compounding variables that we need to intentionally address. I always love to reference now that we have to factor into our strategies or strategic equations around solving these compounding problems is Raj Shetty's work around
Mhm.
the opportunity insight, right? And how we can impact economic and social mobility. And when I think about that, strategies around economic and social mobility in education and creating systems of that magnitude, one, we got to have the expectations for our kids and we can't quit on them. A winner, don't quit on yourself. I think a lot of stakeholders in the ecosystem need to be able to hear that. But I want to expand on your work, your national, right? National Vice Provost of Teacher Preparation at Relay Graduate School of Education. Amazing. Founding Dean of Relay Connecticut. Dr. Good, you've done so much for the education ecosystem, and you specifically around teacher development, educator effectiveness, right? You understand the depth of the practitioner's needs in the context of building capacity and pedagogical effectiveness and how we reach all of our students. But with the radical shift in student demographics and sociographics,
Mhm.
specifically within the next 2 years, education, 57% of education, our students are going to be Black and Brown. How do we adequately prepare future and current practitioners to root new pedagogies to achieve all?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think about when preparing a teacher, an aspiring teacher, or supporting a teacher on their evolution of growth, there's not one way that fits all teachers, as there's not one way of learning that fits all students. And so to think that we can say, this is what makes a great teacher, like, and there's just that space, that's false. That's never going to be successful. I'm also thinking about the generation of children we have today, and future generations, right? We are still right now in our school systems in so many ways grappling with the effects of No Child Left Behind, and teachers are still grappling being forced to teach to the test. Or there's this generation of teachers that learned how to teach to the test really well, and so there's kind of, they don't want to change that, and they're like, this is what I do well, I can teach to this test. But what we're seeing is teaching to the test is not preparing our kids to live full lives of opportunity, to reach economic stability. We are needing to ground our teachers at Relay, and I just believe in any teaching space, to prepare students for an unknown future. Like, we need to stop preparing children for like what was in the past. We need to stop preparing children for what is right now. We need to prepare for the future. We need to prepare students to be active citizens. We need to prepare students to be self-sustainable. How do you take care of yourself as you grow older? How do you take care of one another as an active citizen? And all of those things still require some basics, right? What is the science of reading, and how do we teach a child how to read? How do we teach number sense? How do we, to be an active citizen, you need to understand the historical journey our country has had in not only nationally, but in the globalization context. So there are some basics, but we're losing sight of the value of problem solving in classrooms, in social issues. When you walk into your average classrooms, oftentimes you can see students and or teachers that are bored. Like, and like, I just, like, that is, as a teacher, as a high school teacher, and my favorite, as a middle school teacher, that is one thing I could not be, was boring if I was going to have my class be successful. Teachers need to feel empowered in their expertise. And right now, we have a lot of extra voices involved in the preparation of teachers. And teachers don't always feel as empowered in all spaces that they're in. And so I really believe if we are going to move into new pedagogical approaches, we are going to have to let go of some of the past, let go of some of the present, and open our teachers and empower them to prepare our students for a future that is unknown.
Yeah, Dr. Good, I've just been capturing some of your sentiments. There is a lot there. To my audience, this is one of those responses that you want to play multiple times so that you can be able to scaffold and delineate the specific strategies that Dr. Good highlighted. One thing I that resonates with me, Dr. Good, specifically in the context of now instruction, culture responsive instruction, because student demographics that we're seeing and the radical shifts with that, is empowering teachers, right? And empower teachers to not, I would say, in this rigid context, tightly coupled implementation of the curriculum where creativity is obsolete, and the residual effect is students that are disengaged, i.e., they're bored, right? And we're starting to see that where it's moving from this level of strategic compliance, I'm doing this to get the A, to ritual compliance where I'm just not engaged in totality. But you are absolutely right. And I think that, and I look at this from a broad systems lens, is that the instructional systems, the operating systems within our model focuses on the outcomes and the percentiles of a test, right? And you're absolutely right. One of our previous guests that we had here, Tom Vander Ark, who's one of the architects of No Child Left Behind Act, looks back at it and states that, these were some of the things that I wish we could have accomplished, but we're still seeing the long-term effects based off of what we're doing in the science of reading. Dr. Good, I can tell you that
you do a whole thing there.
that's a whole episode in itself, because you and we're talking about before the science of reading became an educational fad. We're like, how come they're not teaching?
It's like the basics.
And this was when we were, right? This was when we were teachers. When
and you had to feel like you had to sneak around to teach phonics. Yeah.
Exactly, right? We're teachers. We're really unpacking pedagogy, and we're like, kids can't access the text in this balanced literacy approach. Shouldn't we go back to teaching like phonics? And we were teachers back then saying that. So this was a long time ago. So now with the science of reading, as you're stating it, and problem solving and social issues. But I just want you to expand on empowering practitioners, right? We know that there are tightly coupled systems, policies, implementations around curriculum, scope and sequences that teachers are afraid to be off by a few days. Obviously, those are contributing factors. to the actual gaps that we're seeing within our classrooms. But Dr. Good, how could we, because of the level of rigidity that we see with policy mandates in the context of instruction and curriculum implementation, where are teachers allowed to have this level of empowerment and some type of semi-structured autonomy so that they can reach all learners for true engagement? And this is a sub question.
Yeah, well, it's so funny because now, and I'm still stuck on the culturally responsive teaching. So I gotta come back to that. We're gonna just make a note on pad. Like I gotta come back to that one. So the empowerment of teachers, this actually, I do see this as a structural and systemic issue. One of the biggest reasons is there's a lack of trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we just look at like any like state, right? Um, your governor, your education commissioner or leader for that state, our voting population, who do we trust? Do we trust our superintendents to create talent kind of pathways to select for their districts, the needs of their students? No, we don't trust them right now. We say we'll do all the selecting, like the state will figure it out, and then you can pick from the pool. Do we trust our principals? We don't trust our principals very much to select. Once again, we say we will like filter and we'll bring you these teachers, or the state will bring you these teachers that says they are good enough, and you can only select from these. Even though, as you know, like as a principal, we saw people out here that would be incredible teachers. And we weren't able to hire them because they hadn't met all of these other kind of jumped through all the other hoops.
Yeah.
So do we trust our educator preparation programs? Well, if we trusted our educator preparation programs, we would say once somebody has successfully completed an educator preparation program, they do not need to jump through any other hoops. Here's your license. Go and then if we trusted the principal, a principal will select you to teach in their school. We don't trust our educator preparation programs when we say graduate from there and then take the Praxis 2, your Ed TPA, your Foundations of take all these other tests, pay all this extra money, put in this amount of time. We add all these extra hoops to say, we don't actually trust them 100%. Well, what about, do we trust our baccalaureate system, our colleges? No, we don't really trust them. We don't say somebody could become an incredible teacher, enter into a profession after 4 years of college. We're like, no, we don't even trust our college system enough to say, we don't even think you know the basics, like math, your reading. Like, so there's oftentimes states will provide a basic content assessment. They want your SAT scores, they want something else because they're not sure that college degree actually gave you the basics. Do we trust our PK through 12 system? Well, we don't, right? Because if we're saying we want all of this content knowledge assessment on basic level, I'm not talking about your like advanced chemistry. I'm talking about on basic kind of reading, writing, math. We say we need to test because though you graduated with a high school degree, though you graduated with a bachelor's degree, though you might even have a master's degree in teaching, as a state, we want you to go through all these hoops to become a teacher.
Yeah.
There is a lack of systemic trust, and that then trust permeates into the classroom for teachers, right? What profession do you know that can have like a master's degree and do all of this work, have constant professional development, and everybody gets to tell you how to do your job? You've done all of that, and you still, when you get into the classroom, are told, here's what you will teach this year. Here's how you will say it. This is what is expected for your classroom from minute to minute to minute. Like we've got to release this control. Don't get me into like where I think all this like control comes from, but we've got to be able to tell teachers and release control and say, you are the expert. You have dedicated your time, talent, your money to becoming an expert in the classroom. Do your thing. Do you know who trusts teachers? Your independent schools.
Mm.
Why is it
Oh,
that
yeah,
independent schools around the world, they
yeah,
can hire who they want?
yeah,
They don't have to have any kind of credentialing and extra tests. And who pays thousands and thousands of dollars to get their kids in that uncredentialed teachers' classes? Like
you're right.
that right there is a big sign to say, why are we putting so much on these extra hoops and layers? Our educator preparation programs,
Yeah,
like they're preparing great teachers. Let us now trust principals and superintendents to hire
yeah.
some great teachers.
Dr. Good, um, I always like to say root cause analysis. Always like to use that correlation. That's how my mind, you know how my mind operates.
Yeah, yeah.
And and I'm
Yeah.
thinking that you went deep into the root cause, the systemic root cause, and issues that we see in the education ecosystem, culture, trust, allowing that flexibility. Once you get through all these myriad of loopholes and barriers, then you put a curriculum in front of you and being explicit and didactically, you have to do X, Y, and Z in this level of synchronization to the
Mhm.
district mandates and dates that are prescribed. You're right. That is a culture issue.
Mhm.
And the culture mindset policies need to be radically transformed. I should basically say seriously, in a serial disruptive manner changed. And I kind of want to go into the next question because that alludes to that, because I want to expand upon this, right?
Yeah.
Is the importance of representation. Now, when we think about trust, when we think about some of these tightly coupled, inhibiting structures, cultural structures, explicit structures that are in place, we know what the impact is going to be.
Mm.
Limited representation beyond the barriers that you have just highlighted. So when we talk about representation in the leadership and leadership ranks, the classroom practitioners, the first line of engagement are students. But you were appointed, and I want you to expand on your expertise on this. You were appointed to the Connecticut Commission of Education to focus on and craft initiatives with minority teacher recruitment and policy development.
Yes.
Now, you alluded on some of the problems with trust, but this is more of a national problem of context that we're seeing in your role as well. You see in this, but for leaders and policymakers that are listening to this episode of VFV, what are, Dr. Good, the initial steps that need to be accomplished to improve representation at the classroom level? And then expanding on how can we now start redefining trust and eliminating those barriers within the structural mandates per se of becoming a teacher.
Yeah, I never imagined I was going to end up in this kind of ed policy a space. And so about 7 years ago, yes, I was appointed to the now increasing educator diversity policy oversight council. Now, that is a council that was put together via legislation, but honestly, there are so many councils that like legislators come together and they put together to say like we're doing something, and then the council like never meets, or it's just like on paper on the website. And even this one I can sit on. I was in a meeting and somebody said, well, is that even like an active council? And I was like, yes, I'm there every time we meet, like every month. It's an active council, right? But people don't know what's happening. um and so what I appreciate about that council and much of that work, the lead of our commissioners of education have been supportive of that work. Dr. Shawana Tucker has been really supportive of that work, and leading in that is to say, all right, what are districts doing to increase teacher diversity and increasing teacher diversity, racial diversity, ethnic diversity, linguistic diversity in our teachers? Like that's like it's almost becoming buzzy. Like, woo, we
Yeah.
got to like do this thing. And there's an interesting connection between, oh, we need to change our certification, like how we license, and that will increase teacher diversity, as though like people who do not identify as white need like less like of these kind of restrictions. And
Mhm.
that's like not, no, 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 friends. That's not what it's about. Our regulations in most states are really old. Just take Connecticut. How to become a teacher, it was written back in the late 80s and implemented in the 90s. Like,
Mm.
I don't want a teacher from the 80s and 90s. I mean, don't I was taught by teachers of the 80s and 90s. I think they did a pretty like great job, but that's not what my kid needs today. They need a very different type of teacher. And it has taken all this time to even get a conversation about changing those 1990 regulations. Right now, right, we just in this past legislative session, a coalition of people across the state had to come together. And I'm talking coalition of those are your teachers unions, your ed advocate, your legislators, your education department members to get in Public Act 2441. And so this was directly connected to changing our education certification pathways for teachers. I believe looking at how somebody needs to become a teacher, simplifying it, streamlining it, recognizing we're in 2024, we have a lot of advancement in technology that can make this a lot easier, is one of many steps to increasing teacher diversity in a community, a state, or beyond. I will say it's not the only step, and people get really nervous on change. Why do people get nervous about change? Well, usually that comes back to money. Somebody's going to lose money, somebody's going to lose a job. If you look at your educational kind of state agencies or your kind of local education agencies, you've got a program that's launched in X year. That program was great then. But at some point, that program might not be delivering what we need it to be. But we don't want the like, oh, but we don't want anybody to change a job, or what if this impacts money flow to that organization? So people will fight. No, we need to keep this program. And so now we don't have as much money to get the new program X, but we'll try to get X. So let's add X to Y. And then that just keeps going. You never get rid of Y, but you keep adding another program and you add another program. And now you're diluting and you're siloing the entire system of education agencies that all say they're doing the same thing, but oftentimes aren't really working together. Oftentimes there's money being wasted. Um, I'm openly talk about the ETS, and I'm like, man, that's like a private big money maker. They're gonna fight tooth and nail to keep their tests out here in the streets.
Mhm.
I get it. I understand. That's business. That's like capitalism. But that's not what our teachers need. So when are we going to stand up to people and say, we don't want to pay that anymore? This is what our teachers need over here. And then we're like, that sucks for you, but like, this is what our
Yeah.
teachers need. To break down systems, you got to be ready to make really difficult choices around moving money. And
Mhm.
when you start talking money, people want to lock their pockets, and they don't want to move money. People don't want to lose jobs. And going forward often means the loss of some jobs while new ones get put in place, or the loss of money.
Yeah, yeah. And now, Dr. Good, I want to segue into that because you spoke about simplifying and streamlining the process, breaking down systems, and really thinking about the work different. So, it, programs like Relay, right?
Yep.
Just expand a programs like Relay, innovative options regarding teacher development, teacher credentialing, and all that. When I look at that, do you consider now, or should there be flexibility within the policy, within legislation around having these type of programs, so that this is a new resolution, an alternative resolution? Because you're absolutely correct, right? In order to remediate this quandary that we're facing, and it's kind of like we're kicking the can down the road. We have to really look at things fundamentally different and relax on some of these 1980, 1990 policies when now we're talking about the demographics and sociographics are the antithesis of anything of the 80s and 90s, specifically Generation Z and Generation Alpha. Do we need more of programs like Relay out there so that now we're not holding people back?
Yeah. Do we need more? I do think that we need more programs that are more nimble, that are more flexible, that are not kind of mired in traditional kind of pathways. Oftentimes traditional is coded language for, you know, oh gosh, I don't know what type of podcast I'm on, but if you need to mute this out, like I think of traditional as like kind of steeped in a kind of white hegemonic, like capitalistic, like just upholding a sense of values that does not meet our the diversity of our communities and like the trueness of our culture in the United States. So I do think more programs, but I also think there are just so many incredible like educator preparation programs and institutions of higher education that if they were not as restricted by the latest and greatest kind of quality control measures, they would also evolve. I think they would want to shift and change. You know, Dr. Travis Bristol is doing really great work over in the National Teacher Residency, not National Teacher Residency, but Increasing Educator Diversity like Center, and he and the National Teachers of Teaching Residencies has some really great ideas. But what I often hear from more traditional institutions of higher education or graduate schools of education is that they're like, oh, but we can't do that. Our faculty will never do that. Oh no, this is the way we've always done things. And what's beautiful about the work I get to do at Relay is that, yeah, like our faculty will do that. There's nothing that they would not do in service of preparing teachers wonderfully. At Relay, we actually co-create all of our courses. They are deeply co-designed. It's not just me, Dr. Good, an expert in X, like developing this. You've adjunct for us. Like we really deeply design in the latest research of what is needed for today's communities, what is needed for future citizenship for our students. And our faculty, guess what? Our faculty, we don't have a traditional tenure system or anything like that. We're not a like research institution of higher education. We're a teaching college. Like that's what we do. And we do it really well. And our faculty are so incredibly they're just happy. They love their work. Every single one of our faculty also has been a PK to 12 teacher. Like you can't be a faculty at Relay unless you have taught in a classroom and been successful teaching children in a classroom. To me, teachers need to teach teachers. Like, absolutely. I mean, I might be like a great researcher, but all that research and all that knowledge goes out the door when I have a 6-year-old that has crawled under their desk and refuses to come out. So you need to that's the type of faculty I believe we need to be teaching our future teachers. But so many of our schools are trapped in an old system, in an old way. So yeah, we can have new spaces, but I also think we need to empower our more traditional spaces to be more innovative.
That, Dr. Good, is a profound caption of the creative tension that we're experiencing in higher education, which then has this kind of causing effect for the PK-12 world, right? Traditional teacher preparation programs, teacher pathway programs, pre-service programs, however we want to contextualize it. And I like to say the opposite of a traditional teacher prep program experience where you have just underscored various elements of innovation that is disrupting the teacher prep model, where teachers are leading teachers that experience co-design, co-creation. We don't see that in traditional higher education institutions, whereas the expert that is creating the syllabus, core content, core sequence, materials and resources that are being utilized, but the underlining point to that is that there's classroom experience, where practitioners are leading practitioners in the development of tomorrow's practitioners. And Rebecca, you could be as provocative as you want on this, be on this episode on VFE, because we talk about I like to say, we talk about the polarized content that sometimes get ignored or pushed to the side because, again, it challenges the status quo, leading into this question, right?
Yeah.
And I want to talk about instructional leadership and the readiness levels of classroom practitioners, specifically when we talk about creating culturally responsive classrooms and learning environments. We know that the demographics are shifting. By 2026, 57% of education will be Black and Brown, our student population. So we have to start bringing in this polarized notion of culturally responsive pedagogy, or I like to say equity-driven environments. This word
Mm-hmm.
equity has become so polarized in
Mm-hmm.
education that has been eliminated from the education vocabulary or the academic registrar of leaders and teachers today. But
Mm-hmm.
this is Generation Z and Generation Alpha, just like you and I know, our babies, our own kids
Mm-hmm.
belong to Generation Z, Generation Alpha, fundamentally different. We can say the pedagogy of the legacy model does not work. But
Mm-hmm.
because equity is so polarized, and these tactics around culturally responsive pedagogy has become politicized as well in the pre-K sector, right? Higher education. Now, when we talk about how can we ground that in our alternative programs, our teacher prep programs, education, or higher institution, how do we ground urgency?
Mm-hmm.
Urgency, right? Not moving fast, but strategic urgency to leverage culturally responsive learning environments in this new paradigm of the AC stage of education.
So at Relay, part of our pedagogical framework at the foundation of every course is culturally responsive teaching. Like that's like it's not a course. It's in all courses.
Mm-hmm.
That is as we've heard many times, it's just good teaching. It's just
You're right. You're right. You're right.
it's not the teaching only for like our Black and brown kids. It's like great teaching for all kids. Like, do you build relationships? Because like what like that's a pretty standard basic of culturally responsive teaching.
Right.
And so while our demographics are shifting, and like yeah, majority of our kids will identify as a student of color. And in many districts and many states, that's like already the case. Majority of the kids, like majority of the kids in schools in Connecticut are students of color. Um, but what we are also seeing is extreme segregation based
Yes.
on living where people live, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so our schools, while our demographics are shifting, we are not seeing the shift and the kind of diversity we would want within a school system because essentially you got your de facto segregation still going
Yes.
strong today, right? People are moving into neighborhoods, and so a child that identifies as white can truly go to a school with all white children and all white teachers, a public school in many districts across our country, like their entire K through pre-K through 12 experience. And the first time, maybe, that they might be in a racially, ethnically, or linguistically diverse space is in college. But even now, in our more polarized space, we're seeing the segregation like of our colleges where like there are families deciding, hey, I want, no, I want my kid to stay in a very kind of segregated schooling space. And so then the first time they've got to interact with folks is like in the working world. Ooh, that's a little frightening. Um,
You're you're right.
and not just it's not just you don't see it just the impact on children that identify as white. You're seeing it on children like I can just think right here in New Haven, right? There are children that go to school and you have always gone to school with predominantly Black or Hispanic kids. Like that's been your whole world. That was your neighborhood, that was your school. And then if like you go off into the working world or you go into college, all of a sudden everybody is not Black and brown. That's a culture shock. Like that's like a culture shock. Like, and you just drove 10 minutes like away. Um, and like we're not preparing our this generation
Yeah.
of Generation Z and Alpha to face those culture shocks, but they are so smart. This is why each generation is like better than us, right? They're like, oh yeah,
Hmm.
you're not going to prepare me for it. Well, I'm going to go on social media and try to like see what it's like out there. And then they
Absolutely.
get a real warped idea of like, what is that like out there? And algorithms that are being like, here, let me try to like
Yeah.
manipulate what it is out there. But they want to know, they're curious. They are not as I don't know, they don't have as much hate in their heart yet that has
Right.
seeped in. They are a curious generation in like a way. Then they want to think outside of like what is possible. They're pushing us as old folks to say, oh, you need more, you want to interact. And so I do think it's like really important to name that while we do get diverse, like we're still in these segregated spaces. And then when
Yes.
we think about our, what kids are being taught, culturally responsive teaching, once again, is not just for our schools that are in marginalized communities, that are in like communities that have been economically put at a disadvantage or minoritized communities. Like though, like all schools should have the foundation of what is culturally responsive teaching. There should be strong relationships.
Hmm.
All children should feel like they are represented and seen in that community. And that's not just based on your like racial identity. Like there's like so much like ethnic, like cultural aspects that need to be celebrated. And so how do we do that and leverage that for children and say, and this is what's going to make you stronger as you come together to be out in society as grown-ups. Like every kid needs that.
Absolutely. Dr. Good, I loved how you dispelled the micro and macro misnomers
Yeah.
regarding culturally responsive or culturally relevant pedagogy and practices, relationships where all ethnic backgrounds are represented. Yes, it's just not limited to the scope of what, politicians and people around the country have been polarizing culture
Yeah.
responsive practices and culture relevant pedagogy. But I want to highlight a statement that you presented, right? The de facto segregation
Mhm.
of different learning environments across the country. A good friend of mine, fraternity brother, Dr. Gregory C. Hutchinson Jr., he wrote about this in his book, Good Trouble. And one of his principles that he identified was around this level of de facto segregation or de facto segregated learning environments. And I think the question that we have to continuously to ask ourselves since we celebrated the 70th anniversary of Brown v. Board of Education a couple weeks ago is have we truly made progress since that historical landmark policy that was enacted? And if we're still in 2024 talking about de facto segregated learning environments, I think that we have to really interrogate with this level of vitality of defining progress and eliminating these de facto segregated learning environments that we still see.
Yeah, and that to me is there are laws and there's legislation that needs to be put in place, right? And so, there's all this kind of hubbub in Connecticut about every district is supposed to put together like their increasing diversity educator plan and like what they're doing. And it was like, oh man, this is so hard. No, we need some rules on it. Like we need to say you like for a district that is just 100, every single teacher identifies, I think I froze a little bit there. Pause the tape, Serena, and then come back. We need to, it's sad in 2024 that we need to force integration, but we do. I mean, like, we need to make sure that children who identify as white see diverse leaders, like racially, ethnic, and linguistically diverse leaders and teachers in their school communities. We need to ensure if we can't, if people are going to move and like parents are going to decide, like, I don't want my kid to go into this school. A parent has a right to do that. They have a choice of where they want to send their child. I really respect a parent's right to choose the educational system that they want for their child. Then we need to provide within that education system, we need to legislate and have rules around, all right, well, then the staffing needs to be diverse, and this is what that looks like. And if a school is not doing that, there needs to be consequences for that.
Yeah, yeah, Dr. Good, I can tell you this. You brought up a statement before that resonated with me, but that is true. Yeah, you even stated that, some students don't get to experience a black or brown racially or ethnic wise that are different of a teacher. I never had a black or brown teacher until I'd reached my master's level courses. Yes, right. Masters, not even undergraduate, but master's level
At least
courses.
I got one by undergrad.
I got one in your undergrad, but I could say this, and I was like, you know what? I don't want that to happen for my son. Already, he's going into fourth grade next year. He's had African American woman as a teacher, black teacher, and then now his principal, his headmaster, I should say, is a black woman as well. Something that he already experienced more than I experienced by the time I was, wow, yeah, in my 20s when a master's, master's degree versus already in third grade. He's already experienced a black woman as a teacher and a black woman as a headmaster. Something that was intentionally done, Dr. Good, so that he's able to have those culturally responsive experiences. Yes, with that. Last question, Dr. Good. I can't believe it. Seems like we've been on for like 5 hours.
I know. I hope you, hey, audience members, podcast listeners, I hope you listened all the way up to then. I got my last question. It's gonna be a good one.
That's your last question. So now, this is the Dr. Good. I'm not trying to hold you back, okay? But I do have some type of, tightly coupled structures in this question, limiting you to 3 words, but nobody listens to it. They just expand upon it. So I'm gonna be like Neo. Do you? What 3 words do you want our audience to leave with regarding pedagogical readiness to support the learning needs of Generation Z and Generation Alpha in the AC stage of education?
Listen, learn, empower.
Mm. You got to elaborate, Dr. Good. You got it.
No, I followed the rules. You said only 3 words.
Dr. Good, you're not going to elaborate? I'm writing this down. You're not going to elaborate. This is the first on VMV. You're like, no.
Listen, learn, empower.
And I'm going to underscore listen, learn, and empower. This is the first on VFE. Even when I say, can you expand on it? They're like, nope, I'm following the rules. Listen, learn, and empower. Dr. Good has dropped so many nuggets on this episode. Doc, it has been an absolute honor. Anybody that wants to reach out to you regarding your expertise with instruction, teacher development, policy redesign, governance redesign, teacher minority recruitment, how would they be able to get in touch with you? Or even just knowing about Relay Graduate School of Education, how would they be able to get in touch with you?
100%. You can go to relay.edu or just find me on LinkedIn. I am good. That's my social media. I'm not there yet. My kids talk about me, but my LinkedIn game is a little bit better than everything else. So please reach out. You can find more about relay.edu, and message me on LinkedIn. And I am just all about connecting and doing the work in service of our kids. Mike, this has been a blast. This podcast is a blast. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been no, it has been good. Rebecca. I'm like, yes. And when you're talking about your kids, right, with social media, it startled me. It startled me. I had to go back when my son was talking about quote unquote IG. I'm like, wait, hold on, stop. That's scary, right? Um,
I said, my daughter commented on my slideshow the other day. She's like, "Why are you using those templates? You know, you can go over here and just get all these templates." I said, "Oh, we're being told about ourselves now. That's okay. I'm open to feedback. Tell me, teach me, Generation Z, teach me, Generation Alpha. I am all for it. I will listen. I will learn. I will feel empowered by you. Thank you so much."
Rebecca, it has been so good. It has been such an honor to have you on VFE. Like I said, this has been just kind of like a catch up. But look, I've been following your work. Continue to do what you're doing because you are truly impacting the ecosystem. And thanks again for coming on VFB. I cannot wait for my audience to be able to really get down in an asynchronous manner and unpack this episode in totality because there was a lot that I learned and that I didn't know. And of course, you, Dr. Good, providing those nuggets so that I can grow as well as my audience. Thank you.
Thank you. We're out.
And on that note, onward and upward, everybody. Have a great evening.